All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about this short but incredibly powerful story by the Turkish writer Aziz Nesin. Seriously, it's this little masterpiece of satire, and what it does is it takes this one super simple conversation and uses it to explore this huge idea about how we see the world, and maybe even more importantly, how we see each other.
So, this is the question, the one question that starts the whole story. Don't you have any donkeys in your country? Just let that sit there for a second. Can you imagine someone asking you that completely seriously? I mean, how do you even respond? It's just so absurd, right? A little bit offensive, even. And that's exactly why it's such a brilliant hook.
And yeah, it's not just some random silly question for the sake of it. No. This is the launchpad for some really powerful social commentary. The entire story hinges on this one moment to show us how our own prejudices and stereotypes can literally make us blind to what's right in front of us.
So who's involved? Well, at its core, this story is just about two people talking. But their conversation? Oh, it's more like a collision. A collision of two totally different worlds. The whole story just unfolds from this one interaction, which is, a complete clash of perspectives.
Okay, so on one side, you've got our narrator. He's our guide through this whole thing. He's educated, he's patient, he's calm. He's basically just trying to have a normal chat. And then you've got the other guy, the visitor. And he's basically a walking stereotype. He's arrogant, he's completely clueless, and he's absolutely convinced he's talking to someone from some kind of backward nation.
So you can see this is way more than just two guys talking, right? The author Nesin is basically using this conversation like a doctor uses a stethoscope. He's diagnosing a much bigger problem in society, and he's really digging into some pretty powerful and frankly uncomfortable themes.
And what does he find? Well, it's this whole tangled mess of issues. You've got these cultural stereotypes, which get all twisted up with this really toxic mix of ignorance and arrogance. And of course, what does that lead to? Huge misunderstandings between cultures. And the tool he uses to cut through all this nonsense? You guessed it, satire. Really sharp satire.
So, what's the visitor's fundamental problem here? What's his deal? It's pretty simple, actually. He's not there to learn anything new. Nope. He's just there to get confirmation for what he thinks he already knows. He's judging a whole society based on like a cartoon version he has in his head, not the actual reality. And this right here is the absolute key. This is the connection the story makes so brilliantly. The visitor isn't just ignorant, he's arrogantly ignorant. He's proud of it. It's that combination, knowing absolutely nothing but thinking you know everything, that makes him so infuriating but also kind of funny, and unfortunately, so realistic.
So, how does the author expose this? Well, his method is just genius. He uses humor, but he wields it like a weapon. That's the real magic of the story, right? It uses satire to land this incredibly sharp critique without ever feeling like it's lecturing you. And you can actually watch it happen step by step. First, the visitor throws out this totally absurd, stereotype-filled question. Then, what does the narrator do? He doesn't get mad, he doesn't argue, he just gives a calm, factual answer. And boom, in that little gap between the dumb question and the smart answer, the visitor's own ignorance just gets put on full display. The prejudice isn't beaten in a fight, it just kind of collapses on itself because it's so ridiculous. And that's the absolute genius of the whole thing. The narrator wins the argument, but here's the kicker. He never even started one. All he does is let the visitor keep talking. And with every ridiculous question he asks, the visitor just digs his own grave a little deeper. He ends up exposing his own prejudice way better than if the narrator had just called him out on it.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? I mean, why does this simple little story still resonate so much today? It's because the message is absolutely timeless. This isn't really about one guy asking about donkeys. It's about a universal human problem, one that's just as real now as it was back then. Because at the end of the day, the story isn't just pointing out a problem, it's also offering a solution, a kind of prescription. The antidote to all that arrogant ignorance is, well, it's simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. It's real understanding and mutual respect. Because if you don't have those, you're not really talking to someone, are you? You're just talking at them, or worse, just talking to yourself. So, I want to leave you with this final thought. The donkey question in the story is obviously absurd, but that pattern, it's everywhere, isn't it?
So the real question for us is, what are the donkey questions we still ask today? What are those subtle assumptions, those little stereotypes that creep into our own conversations and stop us from actually, truly seeing the person in front of us? It's definitely something to think about.